Hi, you're watching Legends of Tabletop. I'm Leandro, the lead game designer of Multiverse Conquest, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
All right, I'm so excited to hear about your Kickstarter. Why don't you share some of that with us today?
Yes, absolutely. So Multiverse it was born as a trading card game, but it will be released in paper as a living card game, which is the term that I think Fantasy Flight Games coined. If your viewers, listeners know what a trading card game is, then I shouldn't explain it. But I don't know, should we? Well, basically.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm familiar with collectible card games, but not trading card games. Your Kickstarter video touched on some concepts that I'm not quite familiar with.
Well, trading and collectible card games are exactly the same thing. It's just two ways of saying the same genre. Basically, each player has a deck of cards that he or she has built out of the vast collection of cards available to play with. And this is the same concept in Multiverse, except that aside from each player's main deck that they will draw cards from and play cards from, they have another separate deck of just 10 cards that will be shuffled with their opponents. It's called the Galaxy deck because it sets up the game board for the game, which is called the Galaxy. And the goal of the game is to conquer the galaxy in one of two ways, either by conquering your opponent's home planet, so the place where they started exploring and conquering, or by conquering more than half of the spaces of the planets, asteroid fields, whatever you find in the galaxy. So that's the very basics of the game. And it's quite different from other trading card games. First of all, because of this unique board, which is much closer to a board game. Usually in trading card games, the board is divided into your side and your opponent's side. And in Multiverse, your ships can move all around and explore different spaces. And it's much more dynamic in that sense. Plus, the double win condition, that's uncommon for trading card games. Usually it's just deal 20 damage to your opponent, and the way you build your deck is trying to do that as fast as possible. In Multiverse, you can try and win one way and then decide, okay, I'm not going to conquer my opponent's home planet. Let's spread out and let's try to conquer as many spaces as possible, or vice versa. So there's that element, which is much different as well. Should I go on?
Well, you most certainly can. One thing that stuck out to me was the very attractive playing board that you have of the Galaxy. It didn't seem to be a board. It seemed more almost of a tablecloth.
Yes, it wasn't our board. We found a tablecloth in the game store that we could film the Kickstarter video on. So that part of the product isn't done yet, but it will be some sort of galaxy formation. Yeah. Which now that you mentioned that, that reminds me that the galaxy itself is customizable. You can play with 2 players, 3, 4, 5, up to 6, and possibly more. We haven't tested the game with more than 6 players, so we just say 2 to 6 because we're confident with that amount. And you can play on bigger and smaller galaxies. You can decide what the shape of it should be.
Okay.
Then let me think.
Now,
yes, go ahead.
When you go about conquering the galaxy, are your spaceships going to work through individual planets? Are you going to occupy just separate solar systems? Can multiple players occupy the same solar system and make like little interplanetary battles throughout?
Absolutely, yes. I probably should have mentioned this earlier. Yes, There are battles, and there are two ways of battling. You can battle with ships, or you can board enemy ships with your units. And if you board an enemy ship, you risk losing your units, but if you manage to capture the enemy ship, then it becomes yours, and you can use it for your own evil deeds. So the way that the game works is that planets in the game produce resource. Let me just find a few planet cards. Also, so this, I should probably get rid of the sleeve. This is a planet card. Maybe that's not the best way to show them. Let me find a few.
It's effective. I can see it. It looks nice. The artwork on the cards is very well done. Well, at least that card that I saw.
Let me find some cards with better artwork. No, all of the cards have very good artwork. I've got friends that have studied at the Academy of Arts.
Mm-hmm.
I studied at the Academy of Arts as well. This is a lava planet, for example, and it produces red resource. And there's 6 different types. Well, you cannot read it, but each turn, these planets will produce resource. Those that are under your control will produce them resource on your turn, and you can pay it to play your cards from your turn from your hand, like ships. So this is a solar wing, or I'm making a mess here. Or units. This is a gunner.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah, units can enter ships, and ships cannot move by themselves. They need to have a unit inside of them, so any character in order to move. And vice versa, the character cannot move outside of the planet without a ship. It cannot traverse space by himself or herself. There's also actions. There's actions that you can play, and they just go into your junkyard. Using all of these different, and there are a lot of different strategies as well. There's cargo ships that can transport a resource from one space to another. There's ranged ships that can attack things far away. There's boarding, which I already mentioned, and many other mechanics that change how the game is played. And it's obviously, as any collectible trading card game, it's all up to you what strategy you want to go with. It just depends on what deck you want to build.
Okay, so a lot of what you've mentioned so far almost goes hand in hand with that most, I would have to say that most foundational card game that most of us are familiar with if we've played card games in the past, and that would be Magic the Gathering, of course. So
of course, yeah. Well, any collectible card game has to confront the fact that they will be
overshadowed by
at least they will be compared to Magic the Gathering. There are similarities, but only in the genre. Almost everything that goes on in the two games is different.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I shouldn't be here listing all the difference. I've already explained some of the gameplay, which
I apologize.
Should already give you an idea that it's quite different from Magic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's precisely what we tried to do here at Tokars. We wanted to create an alternative to Magic the Gathering. I know that many collectible card games borrow so much and steal, I would say, ideas from previous collectible card games, especially Magic. And I won't name names. So once to name names, I won't name names.
I apologize for even bringing that up. That was poor taste on my part.
No. It's perfectly. It's understandable.
Okay.
It's a fair analogy.
Okay. Now I feel a little bit better. But yeah, I had the space, the genre, that the science fiction genre that you've chosen to develop this multi-galactic and transplanetary game on. That is a fairly unfamiliar to me genre of card game, and one that I think that I would be very interested to play. I know I'm not the only one, and I was very excited to watch your video that you had put together for the Kickstarter. Now, how much longer is this Kickstarter going to take place, and how can we find it?
Well, I hope that you will put a link somewhere here on the Kickstarter. It will go until December 14th, so there's still more than 2 weeks to go. And you'll find it on Kickstarter.com/projects/stockcards. Well, I hope there's a link somewhere underneath the Hangout or the video.
There will definitely be a link. Oh man. So December 14th. Now, if we back the Kickstarter, when can we expect to see the game or to feel the game in our hands? How will delivery take place of the finished item?
Well, I should probably mention that the Kickstarter is for the online version of the game. So all of the rewards have to do with online perks and rewards, cards, the game, the gamers, and let me just find all of these rewards. The card artwork wallpapers, game development notebook. Well, most of them have to do with the digital copy of the game and all sorts of in-game items. The physical version is a stretch goal for the Kickstarter, which as soon as we hit it, we will add more rewards for the physical version, because obviously we cannot promise to deliver a physical game if you haven't reached a certain stretch goal.
That's fair.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, that's why we need your help to gather as much exposure as possible to spread the word about the game.
And make this a reality.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you for dedicating your energy, your time, and your creativity to making this happen as much as it already has. And now it's very close. So yeah, let's go ahead and push to make this a reality, and please support this Kickstarter, because this is a game that I want to play. You know? So yeah, I'm gonna drink a little bit more coffee because I'm still rather sleepy this morning. and you've caught me at the very wee hours of my morning, but
that's true. We are so many time zones apart. It's 4:52 p.m. here, and it's really early morning where you are.
Yeah, it is. Oh man, so I'm gonna break for just a moment to enjoy some delicious coffee and talk for a moment about Birds of a Feather Coffee Company. birdscoffeecompany.com. Now, this is my favorite brew of theirs. It's the Night Owl Blend. They do roast their unique craft coffees in small batches, so it's always fresh. Their signature blends showcase the amazing breadth and depth of flavors that coffee has to offer. The Night Owl Blend, for example, is a rich, deep cup of coffee with notes of smooth caramel, decadent cocoa, and bittersweet molasses with just a touch of acidity, as my coffee maker beeps, to clean the palate so you're ready for the next sip. And please do check out all of the Birds coffees and order now at www.birdscoffeecompany.com. Got a brew for every birdie, and of course, please try the Legends of Tabletop blend. And for a limited time, you can enjoy all of these coffees at 10% off. Just use the code LEGENDS10 at checkout. That is birdscoffeecompany.com. So that's all I've got to say about that. And thank you very much, Leandro.
Thank you for having me, Leah.
You're very welcome. But yeah, so this runs until December 14th, correct?
Yes.
And what is the amount that you're looking to achieve?
Well, our first goal is $18,000, and that would be enough to create the beta version of the online game. And online, the game will be a trading or collectible card game. But the difference is only in the way the game is sold. And in paper, it will be a living card game sold as one product, so you know what you're getting, which is a complaint that many board gamers have, that collectible card games, when you buy a product, you never know what you get. That's part of the appeal, that you open a pack and it's semi-random. There's some cards that are rare, some cards that, and that's not it's not preferable for many board gamers who prefer their games all in one place, all in the box. And I think I should be talking about something else. How did I start this sentence?
What's that? Just that your goal for the
my goal, yes,
18,000. And how further do you need to go?
Well, we still have a long way, but we have a lot of time to fill that gap. Yeah, so I don't know, what should I say? There's a lot to. There's still a long way to go.
I mean, what is the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome in the mission to make this game a reality as far as you've made it so far? If that question came out.
What was the biggest obstacle? Well, so far, okay, so we have an online way to play the game on virtual tabletop. And it's really difficult to show that to potential publishers and people who would like to review the game, because if it's not paper, so it's not ideal for board gamers or card gamers and their websites, because they want to review a physical game. And it's not ideal for video gamers, because the way that the game is playable online right now, there are no rules to it. You have to move the cards as if you're playing on a tabletop, and there's no AI. This is how we playtested all of this time online with this virtual tabletop, and we do have a prototype, but it's rather hard to send to people to playtest and to make videos. So I think that is the biggest problem we have so far, that it's really hard to market, I guess, this game, because it's close to a online trading card game and close to a board game, but there's not really a game in that space right now. So some websites really don't know how to promote it and how to position it, and that's why we're having a bit of a problem on that front. But other than that,
category.
Yes, because it's kind of in the middle of two categories.
Yeah.
Aside from that, everything has gone pretty smooth. The design of the game was a very long, arduous process. Again, because no game has been done in this specific way. I could have just taken ideas from Magic and done it, changed the theme and made a different game, but that's not what we set out to do. So the design was pretty interesting and long, but it was fun for me, and I'm really sure that it has been fun for all of our playtesters and people with we've let playing this game. I'm not sure this sentence went well, but
No, it
aside from
sounds
the
like you had fun making it. And I want to enjoy playing this game.
well, I welcome you to try out the online virtual tabletop version, but unfortunately, it's not the full experience that we are trying to create with the money gathered on this Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But it's something, and you can always rewatch the videos.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now, when you're not working on game design, which would you say is your favorite to play? Video games or tabletop?
Well, they're quite different. Well, you can do a lot more with video games than with tabletop. I'm sorry to say that if we're talking about abstractly, yeah, I guess video games win just for the movement and the pretty pictures, if nothing else. But on the other hand, talking with actual real people and being in a company of friends is quite the experience as well, which you cannot replicate with video games, certainly.
Yeah.
I don't know, honestly. If I had to choose one, I probably shouldn't, though. I'll anger some people on both sides.
Yes, there definitely are. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with these. Star Wars or Star Trek? Which one would you choose?
Well, I'm an avid Star Wars fan. They are quite different. I like Star Trek as well, but Star Wars is more a space opera, which I guess is closer to Multiverse Cosmic Conquest. It doesn't have as much science, and it's more fantasy, but in space. It's just a different setting. Star Trek, I admire for their science fiction themes, and they explore all sorts of different, at least used to explore. I haven't seen the latest Star Trek series. I don't know what even it's called, but I understand it. I like it a lot. But if I had to choose Star Wars.
Okay. But yeah, if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Teleportation, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess I haven't thought about it that much, but I really wanted to have teleportation because you can teleport to other planets. You can teleport anywhere, and you could be with your friends wherever. I mean, you can be in the Bahamas and on Mount Everest and play card games with your friends. But more importantly, I think I would like to have the teleportation power to explore all the different angles of the galaxy.
Okay. Now,
which is kind of fitting, actually.
Yes, yes. Science fiction or fantasy? We addressed this a little bit with the Star Wars answer. But which one would trump the other? Which one is better?
I have to say that I enjoy fantasy more, but that's my problem because I come in watching science fiction movies with a very high bar for what science fiction should be, and then I get disappointed by, oh, that's not how that machine works, and that's not how gravity would work on that planet, and that's why I cannot enjoy science fiction as much as I want to. So fantasy for me again, but it doesn't mean that I don't like science fiction.
Oh, okay. Now, what job, if you were offered it, would make you drop everything and just pursue that job?
Well, I haven't been offered it yet. I don't know. How would you reply to that?
I'm going to refrain for now.
Oh, is it too personal?
No, it's not too personal at all.
I really don't know. A lot of jobs probably would I would agree to a lot of jobs. I still haven't had all the experiences in the world, so I really don't know. I can't pinpoint one. I'm sorry.
It's okay. What musical album can you listen to from start to finish without skipping a single track?
A lot. What? That's how albums should be listened to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any album, at least that I own, I listen to. I listen. I like classic rock, but I also like classical music. And you cannot skip tracks in classical music. You cannot
No.
skip the second movement of a symphony. That's atrocious. That's
Yeah.
no. I prefer to listen to music in its entirety, unless if we're talking about pop music, then it's usually single tracks. But at least the records that I own, I listen to them in its entirety.
Okay. Now, what question do you wish I would have asked you?
How was your day?
Yeah, I mean, how has it been? I can only imagine what stress you might be under, and with having to deal with everything from starting the Kickstarter to making sure everything is in line, to just making sure that you've dotted all of your I's and crossed your T's, and that is a metaphor that I don't know if you're familiar with it or not.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
familiar with the Latin alphabet, yes.
Okay. So yeah, how has that been for you?
Well, it's been hard, but rewarding. And I'm really not used to do as much marketing and as much contacting of different outlets as I am doing right now. And I'm not the best at talking off the cuff and in live in the ether, but I'm working on it, and it's been actually quite fun, I'd say, these past few weeks.
Well, that's good to hear. And these are always skills that that you could definitely, I mean, anyone can brush up on those, myself included. I apologize. but yes, yeah, those skills are very important. What would you say? Let's see. Coming into this, what was your background coming into this before you started this endeavor of game design?
Well, I haven't. This isn't my first project. I've completed another game called Rebels Unite, which is a small party game that we've released. But before that, okay, my background is I have finished architecture at the Academy of Arts in Russia, and so architecture. But I've always loved games and collectible card games, especially. I've started with Pokemon when I was tiny, and then moved on to Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic, and then other, even the Star Wars trading card game. And that's how I started, just by creating cards, inventing cards for those games. And then I guess the way that I really started getting into game design was I went onto Wizards of the Coast's website when they were hiring designers. They were doing their great designer search. I don't know, you probably haven't heard of it. Oh wait, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
For some reason it says that, oh no, it's fine. There's this mute symbol next to me.
Oh,
but anyway.
that's because I am muting because I'm moving my chair around and it creaks. So I don't want that noise to come over, so I.
Okay, yes, and you muted yourself just as you were saying those last few words. Okay.
Yes.
I was, Wizards of the Coast was doing this event in which they were trying to find game designers in their fan base, in their player base. And they had all they had more than 1,000 submissions, and then they narrowed it down to 8, I think, and then they had different different tasks that these game designers would have to design a card in a day that has to be this color, this cost, and it has to be completely new and have a new mechanic. And they would be all scratching their heads. And this process of elimination went on for months, I think, and I was really into it. And I was looking at what these game designers were coming up with, and saw that some of the ideas were really good, but some of them really weren't that good, and I could have maybe improved them as well. And that's why I started dabbling into game design and coming up with my own ideas for games in general, and trading card games, collectible card games in particular. And I think I started the development of Multiverse around maybe 3.5 years ago. The first idea came into my head back then, and it evolved, and over iterations and upon iterations, the rules got tighter, and the mechanics got much more satisfying and more fun to play. And then I started playtesting with fans on YouTube, because I started releasing behind the scenes videos of me creating the cards and creating the game, so people started getting interested as well. It was really fun. So that's kind of how I started in this industry. All the while I was studying architecture and drawing, so that has a little to do with game design. But still, I think that even architecture helped me to problem solve, because there's a lot of problem solving in architecture, figuring out how people need to fit in this space, and how to make them move in such a way that they don't bump into each other, and all of these things. Even though it's different problem solving, but it's still, I think, a skill that I've put to good use in game design.
All right. How would you say? Well, I guess you did just say how that helped you with your background in architecture and design. That would flow easily. I can see how that would flow easily into game design for you.
Well, obviously, it helped me in another way, in that I learned to draw in the Academy of Arts, and I have designed, like, even the logo for Multiverse is my idea, and the front of the card, the back of the card. I don't think there are any illustrations that I have drawn, like for the cards, that are my images, but that's because I've been working on so many other different things. And
what have you been working on? What else have you been working on?
No, I mean, aside from the artwork, the rules and the videos, balancing all of the cards and all of that goes along with the artwork. And hanging out with other people at the Academy of Arts, I had friends that were glad to help me with the artwork.
Yes.
So it kind of worked out as well.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Oh gosh. I need to wake up.
Need some more coffee.
Yes, I do need some more coffee. But that's quite all right. Oh God. Speaking of obstacles, what would you say is the worst request not being fulfilled issue that you've had to deal with specifically with this project?
Request not fulfilled. I'm not sure I understand. What do you mean?
Well, you maybe you had asked an artist to complete a drawing and they didn't complete the art that you needed for a card in time, and you had to go to another source or find some other way to complete a task that you may not have gone down that avenue otherwise?
Yeah, there have been some problems with the artwork and miscommunications on that front, but all of that has been resolved. I guess the biggest task was to design a game that was balanced. It was a really arduous process. Let me just talk a little bit more about that. I think that's interesting. So the board was already in place. I already knew that I wanted a board. I wanted to have players explore spaces and conquer them. And the first build that I made, or one of the first builds that I made of the game, the optimal strategy was just to play a ship, play a unit, and start going straight to your opponent's base. And people would just explore a line of spaces of these hexagons and go back and forth, which completely demoralized me, because that's not what I set out to do. That's not the intent of the game. The intent is to explore and conquer. But the optimal strategy was by far this one. So that was a big obstacle to overcome. And I think the idea of getting the second win condition came to me in the shower. That's, I don't know, a lot of ideas come in the shower. I've heard about it.
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah. But creating the second win condition would allow people to explore more. And that sort of was the spark that allowed for more ideas to develop out of that one. Like the way that planets are explored is now different to how it was originally. And after that realization, I would say that the development went a lot more smoothly.
Good.
Request, in terms of request not fulfilled, yes. The entire process is about finding problems and fixing them, and finding new problems and fixing them. And sometimes when you fix one problem, it creates 2 or 3 more, and sometimes it brings back another issue. Like for a while, the opposite was true. Like in the very beginning, as I said, the optimal strategy was to go back and forth, just 2 sides clashing into each other. Then after a few weeks of playtesting, we found out that the optimal strategy by far was the opposite, was just to explore and avoid all confrontation with your opponent, which again is not what what the game is about. So it's been interesting balancing these 2 strategies. Also because the closer you are to winning in one way, the closer you are at conquering your opponent's home planet, the more vulnerable you are to losing in the other way, because while you're focusing your efforts on trying to defeat everything that your opponent has built on their home planet, they can be exploring and
broadening their
reign. So there's always room for a comeback, which is also interesting. That's not common in trading card games. I mean, not in this way, at least. And I should continue talking?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I think that there is a definite shortage of that concept in games. And I would like to see more of that, where the ego, which you run into mostly with conquest games, where you're a warlord and you've got to defeat your enemy, you know, and instead just kind of chill out and see who can expand their empire the furthest, you know.
Yes, it's also a bit unusual especially for trading card games. They're usually just fight, either 2 mages fighting, or 2 Pokemon masters fighting, or 2 duelists, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually just 2 people as well, where in Multiverse there can be many. But you don't have to fight. You can go the pacifist route and avoid, just push away opponents' ships and build more bases, just defend them. That's also about a valid way to go about it.
Yeah,
Let
because
me think.
that's a concept that I feel should be developed further. There's room for expansion there.
No pun intended.
Instead of just, yeah, and instead of just combat all the time, because we don't want to see that bleed over too much into other areas of our existence.
That's true, yes. Games should be a place where you can relax and forget about the problems of the world, ideally. So let me think. Well, obviously, in the board game genre, there are a lot of games that don't involve conquest or battling. Not so much in trading card games.
No.
I guess in Android Netrunner, you are a hacker that needs to infiltrate a mainframe, which is different, but it's still a battle of sorts. But yeah, that's another thing that Multiverse has maybe over other games in the genre. Let me think of other things. I have mentioned the main differences between Multiverse and other games. I'm not sure that I mentioned the similarities are in the battle system that it's closer to Magic than other trading card games, but as we've just discussed, the battles are just one aspect of the game.
But if you want to expand on the battle tactics, then go right ahead. Go right ahead. How would one go about conquering an already inhabited planet?
Well, you conquer a planet in Multiverse when you are the only player to have units on it. So you're the only player to have characters on it, and you can go about it in different ways. You can destroy, just attack the buildings, attack the ships, and destroy everything. Or you can, as I've mentioned, you can board enemy ships and buildings and try to defeat your opponents that way. Or there are different cards that allow you to do it in different ways, which brings, for example, your opponent's units onto your side. There are 6 colors of resource, and each one has different strategies. And green is the strategy that green is the color of diplomacy, and they barely have any aggressive cards. They use peace treaties and alliance agreements to kind of get their way in the galaxy. So if you're looking for a more alternative way of conquering the galaxy, green is for you, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah, there are 6 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. And the planets can produce either one resource. I mean, each planet produces 2 resource every turn. It can be 2 resource of the same color or one of each of 2 different colors. So there's plenty of room for all sorts of different strategies that you want to try out. All right.
And I apologize for taking a little bit more time to get back with you there. I thank you again so much for coming to spend the time with us today and talk about Multiverse the game. So the Kickstarter ends on December 14th, and please go and back this Kickstarter, because I want to see this game in action. I would love to see more work like this, and I'm eager to sit down and give it around with some of my friends. And thank you, Leandro, for taking the time. Yes. So again, is there anything else that you would like to address in this interview?
Well, I'll just say that all of the details on the game are on the Kickstarter page. There's the full rule book as well, if you're interested in learning the rules in detail. But even the Kickstarter video gives a nice overview of the game. Other than that, you can learn about all the latest updates and news on the game on our website. May I plug the website?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, tokartsmedia.com. So tokartsmedia.com.
Absolutely.
And you'll find all the latest news and updates on the game there.
And we will definitely have links in the description to this video. And again, if you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a beat. Thank you again so much for joining us at Legends of Tabletop today.
The pleasure was all mine.
Thank you, sir. You have a wonderful day, Leandro.
You too.